Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. I'm going to try and adjust this so that everybody can hear. And before I start speaking, I'll ask those in the back, are you getting the sound pretty good? Good. How about over here? All right. Well, if it doesn't work, then just holler again and we'll try and make it work. You know, this is such a wonderful experience for me. I am so proud of all of you who are here and making this effort to be here for this Recovery Day for Women. And as I looked at the wonderful brochure that listed the people that were speaking, I realized, you know, Stephanie Cummington, PhD, Judy Hollis, PhD, Susan Forward, PhD, Betty Ford, zilch. Well, I'm just glad to be a part of it because, you know, who knows, by association it may rub off. Yesterday as I was coming, I was having a terrible time getting started on this talk, and it seemed as though it was so terribly serious, and I thought if I could just think of a funny story, and I even looked in the Reader's Digest for some sort of funny story. No story would apply to this group today. And then, in the typical way, you know, a funny thing happened to me on the way to Los Angeles. Well, I guess God knew that I needed a funny story, so this is what happened. Our flight in Denver, once we got on the plane and rolled out onto the runway, suddenly the officer, the chief pilot, said, "Well, I'm sorry, we're going to have to go back to the gate. You see, we have a little trouble with a light on the dashboard." So we all sighed, went back to the gate, and after several announcements that there would be a slight delay, first it was 15 minutes, and then it was 20 minutes, and then it was going to be a half hour. Well, at that point, I decided I had been sitting long enough, and with my bad back and so forth, I was going to get up and go out and walk around the airport to get a little fresh air. I rose with Ann Cullen, my assistant, and we put our things on our seat and walked out. And as I turned around when we got out in the main lobby of the airport, here came the rest of the whole plane. And Ann turned around to me and she said, "Well, I guess they figure if Betty Ford can do it, they can do it too." In those days, when many of us were actively working on the passage of the Equal Rights Amendment, The phrase "you've come a long way, baby" was really quite chic. And we used it to encourage ourselves, and we wanted to believe, that we were really making great strides. Well, we did go a long way toward making changes in the perception and the role of women in this country, because work laws and compensation laws were enacted to place women on a more equal standing with our male counterparts. To my mind, however, we never went quite far enough. There are many areas where the impact of those radical feminists in those 60s and 70s just never made a dent. And one of those areas was in the field of health care. Women were expected to fit into the mold of established healthcare practices. And those practices were developed and established with men practitioners based on data collected on male patients. It was expected that what was good for the gander certainly must be good for the goose. So the number of deaths from breast cancer continued, and women began to suffer more heart attacks, and they had more incidences of lung cancer. And still, the money directed at healthcare research was programmed to studies using data gathered from men only. And the same phenomena occurred many years in the area of research for alcohol drug research of dependency. It was considered a man's disease, and the data gathered from men alcoholics and from men who were recovering. Now, at last, I think we can really start to say, yes, we have finally come a long way. And today's Recovery Day for Women is certainly evidence of that. Women's health care issues are a very hot topic, and this temperature has been increased because the women have started speaking out. We realized that our needs could only be met by collecting data based on our bodies and our specialized health concerns. As our collective voice grows louder, the responses become more and more appropriate. So thank you for being here, and thank you for being a part of the catalyst for change in women's health care. My remarks have been titled Addiction in the Family. And I want to start by telling you about my family. The family spelled with a capital T, the Ford family. When I think back to the time in that period before my treatment, I remember what it was like in our home as a result of my disease. As a typical family caught up in addiction, we all had become immersed in the disease. I now realize that all the things we read about alcoholism affecting the whole family are dramatically true. My family was beside themselves with worry. They blamed each other for what was happening, and no one knew what to do or who to turn to. And so it was just easier for them to do nothing. At that time, Jerry and I were building a new home in Rancho Mirage. And part of my husband's coping mechanism was the belief that once we got into our new residence, things were going to be better. I'd have a whole new home, and that would keep me busy with a garden, a swimming pool, and certainly everything would be fine once we moved. His travel schedule was pretty hectic and erratic, and that gave him the opportunity and reason to be absent from the situation at home. And that allowed him to overlook a lot of what was going on with me. Our three sons were off doing their own thing, trying to finish college and adjusting to new jobs. It was fairly easy for them to figure someone else would look after Mother. And besides, after all, they had a sister who they hoped would fix or solve the problem. Of course, that would relieve them and their consciences of any burden they might be feeling. And it was obvious to everyone that yes, I was sick, and the pinched nerve in my neck was giving me a lot of pain, as were other aspects of my life. And they were feeling helpless, and they were feeling very guilty about it. But they believed that the doctor I was seeing every week would somehow take care of the problem. But you see, I wasn't going to a doctor who knew about chemical dependency, and he was unaware of the damage that was taking place. He was one of those doctors who, if the patient was a woman, was caught in that double standard that told them women couldn't be alcoholic. And after all, it wasn't ladylike. And as a former First Lady, it was certainly impossible for a woman like me to be involved in anything like addiction. He just knew that I was in a lot of physical pain, and he was trying to help me with all those wonderful mood-altering drugs he prescribed. Oh yeah, I suppose I was vaguely aware of the warning labels that came on those prescription bottles. The labels that said, do not operate heavy equipment or use alcohol when taking this drug. But you know, my alcoholic thinking told me that those labels were other people. They were people who drove tractors and operated steam shovels. Or maybe those people that didn't know how to drink. I knew how to drink, and so that was my alcoholic rationalization. So there I was in my days of pills and drinks, blissfully unaware that I was anything but rather sick because of my neck and my back pain. You know, ignorance can be such a stumbling block, and denial is its close companion when you're dealing with alcoholism. Well, thank goodness, today people don't have to stumble for that lack of understanding. At that time, Susan Ford was in fact living very close by to us in the California desert. And as the only other female member of the Ford family, she was the one that was most subjected to my irrational behavior, my mood swings, and my unpredictability. And she was the one who had finally had enough. Like everyone else in the family, she didn't really know what to do about me, but she was scared enough to try to find out. Susan and I were both attending or being treated by a certain gynecologist who had let it be known that he had a bit of knowledge about addiction. As a recovering alcoholic, he didn't push the fact, he just waited patiently for the day when someone would ask him. For that Ford family, that day came when Susan screwed up her courage and asked, what are we going to do about my mother? The good doctor's response was not one of shock or surprise, but rather, Susan, I thought you were never going to ask. Now let me assure you, I was not overly impressed with his offer for help. In fact, it was his first attempt when he came to speak to me about it privately, ended very abruptly with irate demands that I get him out of the house and leave me alone immediately. Well, thank goodness he wasn't discouraged. And together with another doctor who specialized in addictive diseases, he returned. And the two of them introduced my family to the process of intervention. As a result of my family's involvement in recovery, in fact, in my recovery, actually started before mine did, because they were the ones who provided the groundwork which did get me into recovery. And they, with these doctors, agreed to work as a team to confront me about my disease. It was a few days later, April 1st, 1978 to be exact, and I remember it well. It was April Fool's Day. And my family, with everyone present, my husband, our 3 sons, our daughter, and our daughter-in-law, plus the doctors, came together in what is known as an intervention. My first thought when they came through the door was, oh, golly, what a wonderful occasion. Everybody's come home together. And my second thought was, good heavens, something important must be going on. Well, they had come from across the country to tell me as a family that we shared more than just our love, that we shared a very serious problem, and it was a problem we had to face, a problem we had to do something about. And of course that problem was my alcohol and prescription drug dependency. They told me that my disease was not only a burden to me, but to them as well. And it was destroying our life as a family. At that time, I was taken by great surprise, and I was totally shocked. I was angry at what they were telling me, and I was tremendously hurt to hear what they were saying, because they spoke of specific occasions where my actions had bewildered them and distressed them, and they outlined dinners and forgotten conversations and damaged feelings. With a great deal of love and caring concern, they told me they were no longer willing to make excuses and cover up for my disease, nor would they stand by and watch my disease progress. I had always taken tremendous pride in the devotion and the dedication I'd given my family. And I truly believed that I had lived my life for each one of them. Now all I could hear them say was that I had let them down and that I had failed them as a wife and a mother. And I can assure you I was totally devastated. But even so, through all that grief and all those tears and anger, there was something else that I heard them saying. Yes, even in a very troubled state, emotionally, physically, everything, they were telling me that they loved me too much to let me go. And that's what caught my attention. Later, when all our emotions were calmed down, we talked about several ways I could begin my recovery. And there were options which included attending AA meetings, 90 meetings in 90 days, or perhaps an inpatient treatment program either in Minnesota or in California. And we made a decision that it was best for me to spend a month in the alcohol and drug treatment facility at Long Beach Naval Hospital. At that time, it seemed a little bit extreme to me. After all I had done was, have a few drinks and take a few pills. And didn't everybody do that? At least the people I knew did. I entered treatment really not because I was ready to admit that I had a problem, but because I believed if my family was concerned enough to risk an intervention, I should probably listen to what they were trying to tell me. And now I know how very fortunate I was. I can't tell you how many times I have thanked God for giving me, my family, the courage to confront me with what I now know as tough love. I'm also so grateful that God saw to it that even in my dulled but still very strong will, I was able to accept the love that they offered. The process of intervention is not easy. It's not easy for anyone. And there is no guarantee that it will succeed. But it may be the last and the best hope for saving the life of someone you love. And even in cases where intervention doesn't get the chemically dependent person into recovery, it often plants the seed for recovery at a later time. It can be an awakening for the family to begin to turn their lives around, to seek treatment, and most importantly, find help for themselves. They'll begin to feel comfortable within their own lives and to understand their fears and their emotions. They need to withdraw from the negative force chemical dependency is having on their lives. At the time of the intervention and my entry into Long Beach Naval Hospital, my family's focus was only on me and my problem. They couldn't see how intimately they were involved. But while I was in treatment learning about myself and my disease, it was suggested that some of them participate just on a very limited basis. The idea of codependency had not yet become a part of the treatment field. In 1978, family therapy was pretty much limited to education and about alcoholism as a disease. And little was being done then to treat the family or get to the needs. Well, they gained a lot of knowledge and a lot of awareness. Most importantly, they were encouraged to start living their own lives. The intervening years have shown us that codependency, like chemical dependency, has symptoms, reactions, and faulty belief systems. And these are easily recognized. Hopelessness and denial often render the family members helpless and unable to respond. The codependent person is someone who provides caring and caretaking in ways that are unhealthy for all concerned. Both the addict and the codependent are very adept at placing the blame. But the dependent person, of course, is blaming others, while the codependent is quick to blame him or herself. Treating the alcoholic is important, but unless you also treat the family, you're ignoring the needs of an important factor which involves everyone's recovery. As you can see, it's the spouse, the child, the parent, any of the concerned others who all share in the interaction of the disease. For years, the family of the alcoholic, they've been trying to be accommodating to the very best of their ability. They've been trying to adjust their lives to fit into the alcoholic's irrational behavior pattern. And that behavior is so unpredictable and ever-changing that the family can never win. Then as the disease progresses, they become more and more confused and angry and yet developing all kinds of fears. Their overburdened emotions can make them lash out at the alcoholic, but more oftenly at each other. Codependency treatment allows family members to start getting better. They begin understanding the impact the disease has had on each of them. And they must learn that each member of the family must be responsible for his own growth and recovery. In treatment, family members are encouraged to look their own feelings of resentment and anger and fear, the distrust, the guilt they're feeling. Once they do that, then they'll begin to understand these emotions and how they've been reacting to them psychologically and physically. It's important for them to understand that as a family member, they haven't caused the alcoholism, and it's not, they're powerless over controlling it, and they certainly can't cure it. But they can help themselves to recover from the impact that it's had on their lives. Improvement, understanding, and education teach them to live their lives in a constructive way, free of the insanity of codependency. Family members should seek treatment, and they can succeed even while their alcoholic spouse or loved other person is still drinking and using. And by making that change in themselves, they may increase the chance of the alcoholic eventually asking for help. Because you see, they have broken the cycle. However, if this doesn't happen, once the family understands its part in the disease, then everyone can move forward with realistic expectations for the future. Together, the Ford family, and that's the only one I really know much about, but we learned about the disease and all about alcoholism. And together we work to regain our family unity, which has always been very strong. Once more, we were a team with all the parts healthy and functioning. And today, we do have an ongoing recovery which grows stronger and stronger in the appreciation and respect we have for each other. One well-known doctor says that a recovering alcoholic is weller than well. And I know that's true because I never felt better in my life. And the same is true for family. The depth of love that is gained and shared in a recovering family is phenomenal. And what better gift to give each other? Recovery from any disease requires some degree of support and understanding from the family. But in alcoholism, it becomes even more meaningful because everybody has suffered from the pain. It can be a complete shared experience, and it can be a wonderful shared recovery. As a recovering alcoholic with my name prominently displayed in a treatment center, and with a family who supported me in speaking out and taking an active role in the alcoholism field, I have become aware of the important responsibility that I have to my family. The responsibility to make sure they remember that this disease is believed to have a hereditary linkage. Recent research provides genetic and biological factors can predispose offspring to alcoholism. Once they start using a mood-altering substance, the odds of addiction are high. In families where one or both parents are alcoholic, the children are at even greater risk because of this hereditary nature. I'm an example of that genetic linkage or predisposition for chemical dependency. Both my father and one of my brothers were alcoholics. My 4 children, unfortunately, also find themselves on the receiving end of this potentially predisposition to addiction. Now, many authorities believe that environment plays as much importance as heredity, and knowing that one's parent was an alcoholic may be used in a very positive way to make the child of the alcoholic very conscious of the risk involved if he or she decides to drink or use. My children know about that risk. It's possible that none of them have inherited this genetic factor, something that can lead to this baffling disease. As a mother, I certainly hope none of them has, but if one or even more of them should have to face this disease, I hope I have successfully fulfilled my obligation to provide them with the information so that they can find their way and know what to do about finding recovery. As a matter of fact, I hope they know they can always come to me with their questions and their concerns. If any of them do share my disease, I hope they come to realize the joy and the happiness that I've found in the fellowship of recovery. I also hope they know of the gratitude that I have found as a recovering alcoholic. And congratulations to all of you for showing up. It's a great day. Thank you.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with, and it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs, long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down. And then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. and I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right, but I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.